Hey, welcome back to another edition of yet another sports podcast with your bearded brothers. I'm Matt.
John Grace.
We think. We're still not sure. We haven't decided if we switched bodies. Who knows? We could be AI.
That's just scary. We're in the Matrix. Everyone run for your life.
Well, with the way AI technology today has come, for fuck's sake, we could be AI. Oops.
They're taking your jibs.
I think we swore in the first 30 seconds we're getting oh wait, we don't get monetized for this shit anyway. Oh.
No, we're not getting, not currently anyways. We'll have to worry about that in the future possibly, but not now.
Certainly not as fuck now. Okay. So today, what we're gonna do is and I think we should have been doing this all along, and we really haven't been. So I think we should do a rundown, so people know what they're gonna hear on the show.
Yeah, fuck them.
Fuck it.
Just watch
you
the
know
goddamn
what?
show,
Listen to
you'll
the whole
figure it out.
goddamn show. You'll figure out what the fuck we're talking about.
Just listen to the show.
So with that, let's just launch into the fucking news.
Yeah, well, we always start with the news.
Always start with the news. The news, not the olds.
Yeah.
We are horrible.
God, that's terrible.
All right. So, do you want me to start with NHL news, or do you want to start with NFL news?
Let's start with NFL news because there's quite a few things.
There's quite a few things. So let's start with the big news that broke literally minutes before we began podcasting.
Well, I mean, you can start with that one. There's a lot of big news, but
there is.
I mean, we can. I mean, if you want to start with that one, I don't know if it's the biggest news, but it is recent.
It's pretty
news.
big, and it's recent, and it's actually what's on my head right now.
Yeah.
So
the Rams are trading away Jalen Ramsey to the Dolphins and got fucking fleeced.
Got absolutely
only receiving
by
back
the
a third round pick and
a third round pick in
Long.
2023 and a tight end.
Hunter Long.
Long, and that's
Don't
it.
get me wrong, not a bad tight end, but we're
my
talking
God.
Jalen Ramsey, dude.
Yeah.
Like, you'd at least expect a second rounder, if not a first.
So
Like,
now their quarterbacks
wow.
are Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey.
That's ridiculous. The
That's
Rams
stupid.
defense all of a sudden became ridiculously good.
The Dolphins
Like,
defense.
Dolphins, sorry, that's what I meant. Dolphins defense.
The Rams defense
which
just became
last year
ridiculously
they weren't
bad.
Like the last year the Dolphins defense wasn't bad, but this is like a huge upgrade for them.
Oh, 122%, man. I just,
like now they just have to work on their defensive line and they're good to go.
Oh,
like,
yeah, totally.
That's crazy.
It makes me wonder if the Rams are finally admitting they need a rebuild.
Well,
but they still seem allergic to draft picks.
Which, to be fair, that would then coincide with what I heard. Remember what I heard yesterday, which was the Rams might be potentially looking to trade Stafford.
Yeah.
If they are admitting that they finally need to go to a full rebuild, that would be the move to do it.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be sure. Go ahead. You know what?
I mean,
you don't have a first-round pick this year.
Yeah.
So you might as well go ahead and just tank it all the way out.
If you trade Stafford, you might be able to get a first-round pick.
I doubt it. Maybe. But you could.
He's still good enough. Like, he's still
that's
very
what I'm
good.
saying. Like,
he's just coming off of an injury. I mean, if nothing else, you're going to get a high second, right?
So my theory, my theory, because the salaries, the cap hits, are very similar. We would then have to make some moves and do some trades. But you could trade Cook for Stafford straight up. It works salary-wise. It works cap-wise.
Yeah, but we'd have to, like, also move Cousins.
Then you'd have to find a way to move Cousins, yes.
Yeah.
Either cut or move at that point, yes. To save enough salary cap to fit him.
I don't think that'll happen. Don't get me wrong. I would like to see Stafford over Cousins. I think that'd be fun.
I think that would be, to me, it would be hilarious because bringing him back into the NFC North so that he could play the Lions and he could play with Hawkinson. There's something about that makes me laugh.
I would love it, but I don't, like, realistically, I think the odds of that happening are very, very low.
I think it's also incredibly slim. But I don't see it happening whatsoever.
Yeah. But like I said, if the Rams are really ready to admit the rebuild, like I think moving off of Stafford proves that they are. Now where Stafford would end up going, I mean that's an interesting thought, right? Because we haven't really heard that was going to be a thing until really recently. I've heard about it being like, oh, they might actually be So that means also other teams might not necessarily knew that he was available until recently. So
Yeah, and
that
what I
that
had
that shakes
heard
things up,
the
right?
day you told me that you heard that they were looking at trading him is the day that I had heard that other teams were kicking the tires. They
Yeah.
wanted to see if he was available. So I've heard it
Yeah.
both ways. I've heard that
Yeah.
they're looking to trade him, and I've heard that other teams are looking to see if he is available.
Yeah. But it's
Um,
just interesting because there's only so many teams you can think of that might even, contemplate that, right?
well, there's one that comes to mind.
Well, yeah. There's
There's one that comes to mind because they have a history of trading for veteran quarterbacks and trying to keep a QB carousel going.
Yeah, yeah. There's that one. The Raiders would make sense too.
The Raiders
Uh,
make some sense. The
the
Buccaneers would make some
Bucks would make
sense.
some sense. Yeah,
And
I
I mean,
mean,
even to an extent, the Texans, but I don't think they. I
they
don't think
don't need to.
they don't
Not
need
with
to.
their
They've got
yeah.
a top draft pick. Just like
Yeah.
Carolina would make some sense, but they don't need to anymore.
Oh, you want to know another interesting one?
I think you're going to go with the same place I am.
Green Bay.
Oh, Green Bay. That would be
If
interesting.
they move off of
Lose,
Rodgers, if they don't
Yeah.
trust Jordan,
if they lose Rodgers to the Jets, they could totally forward because they're going to get at least one first rounder out of that. They could
Yeah.
totally flip a first rounder for Stafford.
that would be funny as hell too.
I would laugh, but I think if they flip Rodgers, I think they want to go with Jordan.
I do too.
I feel
do
that
think
way
that's where
about
they're
it.
going. Yeah, it does feel that's the direction they're gonna go.
Yeah.
But I still think it's funny the option, right?
I thought you were going to tell me
Um,
the rumor about the Panthers.
Oh, the Panther. Yeah, the Panthers potentially moving. There's no way they give up.
So we
Yeah.
have to talk about that first,
Yeah.
which is the Panthers.
Oh yeah, that's right. We haven't even talked about that.
We haven't
news
even
yet,
talked
then.
about that yet.
Yeah,
So the
so the
Panthers
big
have
news-
acquired the first
Yeah.
overall pick
from the Bears.
from the Bears for DJ Moore,
Yep,
a
they gave up
first
DJ
rounder
Moore.
this year, a first
They're nice.
rounder next year, a second rounder this year, and a second rounder in 2025.
2025. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the package that the Bears. That's a fleecing for the first overall pick. I'm sorry. It's an absolute fleecing on the terms of the Panthers to pay so little. Don't get me wrong, DJ Moore is a fucking stud. And him catching passes from Justin Fields is going to be great. And the fact that the Bears got the 9th overall pick, and then they got an extra second this year, and then they have 2 firsts next year, and they're going to have an extra second in 2025. That's helpful. I don't know what they're
For
going
the
to
Bears,
do.
it is.
Yeah, but I think they could have gotten more. And
They might have been able to get more, but I think they really valued DJ Moore.
I think they did too. I think that's
And then
what
on
really
top of
sold
that,
them on
what
it.
other teams were possibly offering. Because remember, they also didn't want to move too far down in the draft.
Yeah,
And the
they
only
might
other
not-
people that were
there was a lot of speculation they were going to trade with the Colts, but
yeah, but I'm guessing the Colts didn't want to offer nearly as much as
or
what
the Colts
Panthers
didn't
were
offer
willing
at
to.
all. They're like, we're
They might have
guaranteed
been like, "I'm
because there's
fine."
only
Yeah.
4 really great quarterbacks, and we're at
We're
4,
guaranteed
so we're
one.
guaranteed
Yeah.
one of them.
Yeah, that's possible.
And they know that
Yeah.
Arizona has no interest in one. So even if
Exactly.
somebody were to move up and trade with the Bears to get one of the top 2, we're still
still
looking
know
at
they're gonna get one, yeah.
looking at Levis or Richardson. And the way people
Yeah.
have been talking is that Richardson could even be one of the top 2.
That might go before, yeah, exactly.
And after his workouts,
Which I'd be surprised by, to be honest. 'Cause
I would
still
too.
think
But
it's a little...
after his combine workouts, good lord, if
Yeah.
anybody could be said to have raised their draft stock on combine weekend, it can be Anthony Richardson.
Oh, yeah.
who put up
I still think it's...
stupid numbers.
I still think it'd be really bad to pick him and start him, which is why I would be worried about anyone picking
I
him at
agree
like 1 or
with
2.
the 1 year that
Yeah.
he played at Florida. I would want to sit him for a year,
Yeah,
but
I would be worried about it.
I totally get, the hype.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's possible the Colts either didn't offer enough or didn't need to, or decided that they only were going to offer a little bit because they didn't really feel like they needed to jump up that high. So that might have been why the offer might have been low. If there was an offer, it might have been just like, well, we don't need that spot that bad, so we'll offer you something, but we're not going to offer you as much as like the Panthers were probably willing to.
And then there was the rumor that they were going to trade the Panthers, who just acquired that pick, were looking to trade it potentially. And I expressed doubt.
They would have to somehow acquire more than what they paid out.
And I don't think they're going to be able to, especially with DJ Moore.
Like even getting an equal payout would be difficult, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree with that. While I do think they fleeced the Bears for the pick, if that's the best offer,
they also paid a lot to get there too. Like
I was going to say, if that's the offer that the best offer that the Bears had on the table,
that means that
means that nobody else was willing to pay that much for it. So I think you're kind of in a catch-22, my dudes. You're going to have to use it. You got the pick, now you have to use it. You're going to draft your quarterback of the future at that pick. Good luck.
Yeah, which I mean, to be fair, you're going to get the best QB, I think, in the draft, probably going Bryce Young more than likely.
I agree. I don't like.
They could go CJ Stroud, but I'd be surprised. To be honest.
I worry about like I said, I worry about Young's attitude, especially in Carolina, where Carolina's had some issues with that.
Yeah,
I don't know what the room or the locker room.
But with also, they might be doing the whole like with Frank Reich being the QB whisperer, right? Maybe he's the one that could help Bryce with some of that issues as well.
Exactly, and so I was thinking Frank Reich is pretty good at that kind of shit. So it's entirely possible that they're looking at Bryce Young because there's very few coaches that are great at bringing along young quarterbacks, and I think Frank Reich
he's
is
one of
them.
Yeah.
So,
it just makes sense to me.
Let's see here. Other news, sad news, out of the state of Minnesota. Legendary Vikings head coach Bud Grant. He was the head coach back when the Vikings still played their games outside in the winter.
Yeah.
He has died at the age of 95.
Which, it is sad news, but at the same time, he was 95. He got to live a long life, and he also got to be one of the most successful, Minnesota coaches,
Vikings
anyways.
head coaches ever.
So
I think he was the arguably coach most of the years they went to the Super Bowls. In fact,
yes, he was. He went to 2, I believe. I think he went to 2. It might have been 3, but I'm pretty sure it was 2.
Let's see here.
Which is why I was going to follow it up with not necessarily just one of the best coaches Minnesota's had, but one of the best coaches in the NFL, because there's not that, like, if you think of how many coaches there are that go in and out of the NFL, there's not that many that manage to make it to the Super Bowl. There's less that win it, but there's still not that many that even make it to the Super Bowl. So if you make it to the Super Bowl, you're one of the greats. So that's my opinion. And to do it twice. And to do it twice,
and he's in the Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, he got to live a nice life. He got to do what he wanted. He got to be one of the great coaches of the NFL. I mean, it's sad that he passed, but it's also good to know that he had a good life. He lived a good life. He lived a life that he wanted to live, which was coaching in the NFL and being around football and loving football.
Actually, he went to 4 Super Bowls.
4 Super Bowls, okay.
4. He was at Super Bowls 4, 8, 9, and 11.
Okay. Yeah.
69 was Super Bowl 4, and then in the 70s he made 8, 9, and 11.
Yeah.
I mean, he retired after the 83 season, was succeeded by Steckel, who went 3-13. Steckel was fired in 84, and Grant returned for one more season in 85.
Yeah.
He led the Vikings to 4 Super Bowl games, 11 division titles, 1 league championship, and 3 NFC championships. Yeah. I mean, what more do you need to say?
Like I said, it's not just one of the best Minnesota coaches, but just one of the best coaches. Period.
One of the best coaches. Period. All out.
I mean, it's hard to make a Super Bowl, let alone 4 of them and 2 of them back to back. Like,
oh yeah, 100%. I mean, the dude's a beast.
Honestly, he probably should have won. Like, one of them, he should have won.
Oh, I firmly agree. There was at least one where it was close, and he should have probably won that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Ran
into the Steelers quite a bit, if I remember right.
Unfortunately, yes.
The purple people eaters here, they obliterated us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Want to talk about the cuts?
Oh yeah, there's been a lot of cuts. I don't even know if I don't have them all written down. There's been
I
so
don't
many.
either. The big one for us is, of course, Adam Thielen.
Yeah, Adam Thielen got cut.
Adam Thielen, the Minnesota legend, guy who played for what, Mankato State?
Yes.
Minnesota State at Mankato?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. He, walk on, undrafted free agent, became one of the best receivers in football.
Yeah.
And today, after 9 years, he's been cut by the Vikings. Well, not today, but a couple of days
Well,
ago.
yeah, he's been.
They also cut Cam Dantzler.
Cam Dantzler, he was released.
He was released. That's one though that we all kind of, salary cap thing. We kind of saw that coming.
Yeah.
There's been some trade inquiries about Dalvin Cook, which we've already talked a lot about the fact that he's probably going to get traded.
Sounds like
they
it, yeah.
reworked a few contracts, I think.
Yes,
and Zadarius Smith asked for his release.
It has not been granted it.
Has not been granted it yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if he gets traded or released. His dead cap space is only like 333,000.
No, I agree. I'm just saying it'd be interesting to see if the fact that they haven't granted it makes me wonder if they might actually decide they might need him for something.
Or that they might want to trade it. It might have a package that they're talking about where he's part of the trade deal.
That's possible too.
Yeah, that could be a thing.
Because they're obviously if he asked for the release and they were expecting to release him anyways, they probably would have just done it and be like, fine, okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna do it anyways.
Yeah, 100%.
But the fact that they haven't granted it makes me think that they have some type of plan with him in mind.
Yeah.
That's my guess. I could be wrong, but that's my guess.
100%, I think, in my opinion. I think, like I said, I think he's probably going to get a release or get a trade at some point in time. I don't think that there's
probably traded, to my guess.
Yeah, me too. Like I said, he's got a huge cap hit against us, and we need to save some cap space. And his dead cap would only be 333,000. So,
and if you're gonna choose between Zadarius Smith or Danielle Hunter, they're both very good. But Danielle Hunter's been around around Minnesota or a little longer, and
he's a little younger,
overall
and
been better.
his cap hit isn't quite as bad.
Yeah.
But his dead cap is worse. So you would still save by getting rid of him, but you save more by getting rid of Zadarius Smith.
Exactly.
So that's kind of where I was looking at that, is if you're looking capology-wise, I think, capology-wise, I think Zadarius makes more sense to get rid of than
100%. Yeah.
So.
It's just and I think just Hunter's overall a better player, to be honest.
I kind of agree. I don't disagree with your sentiment at all, especially considering from what I've seen. Danielle Hunter can play both linebacker. He's more of an edge guy. He can play both linebacker and defensive end. He's comfortable with his hand in the dirt, just like he's comfortable standing up. I think he's better with his hand in the dirt.
But he definitely is. He's definitely better when he's actually in a full-on edge rusher mode. When he's
full on the line, and he's coming off that defensive end. Yeah,
and he's not as good dropping back. Use his overpowering strength to push in. Yeah. When he's just pressuring and stuff, that's when he's great.
Yeah, that's I think where he's at his best. And if that's the direction that a guy like Flores wants to go, then that's where you're gonna get
he probably will, because we know based upon statistics that Flores loves to put pressure on QBs by blitzing.
Yeah, but I don't know if he runs a 4-3 or a 3-4 or a 4-4 or a I don't know whatever the crap else there is out there. There's so many weird defensive
I think they said
now.
that it's going to be I think they said it's going to be a 4-3, but I forget.
If he runs a more traditional or like a storm 4-3.
But he typically likes to run pretty heavy blitz packages. He likes to blitz.
Yeah.
So there's definitely going to be a lot more use of the actual bull rushing, which Danielle Hunter is great at. So it makes sense.
Danielle Hunter is very speedy, but he's also very good at pushing that tackle and beating him off the blocks.
Yeah. Exactly.
So that'll be interesting, if nothing else. All right. So those are big ones. The Jets have restructured a bunch of players' salaries, and they freed up $15 million in space.
Yeah, with what is expected to be happening within the next couple days, it's not surprising.
Yes. By the way, I do think it's funny because I remember I'd have to go back and watch the old
Hmm.
episodes. But I remember Aaron said, "Oh, I'm not going to take that long. I'm not going to hold the Packers hostage." And
Yeah,
I
I know,
said,
right?
my exact wording was something to the effect of, "Yeah, right. I'll believe that when I see it," which means
Yeah,
we'll
right.
find out right before free agency or the draft or something. And I believe you said, "No, I don't think it'll take that long. I think he'll be pretty quick with it."
Well, I said that I thought it would have been decided by January, but then when he went into that stupid like fucking dark phase, I was just like, no, nope. He's just doing fucking Aaron Rodgers shit again.
Yeah,
All right.
I think they were done with him. And it sounds like, from what Gudikins
Oh,
said,
it sounds like they're fucking done.
oh
With
yeah,
him. They're
Gudikins
tired of
was
him.
interviewed at the combine, and he more or less said, "Nah, getting him back is not our priority right now."
No.
So
Literally, wasn't the quote like something of something along the lines of like somebody asked, is there a way that Aaron Rodgers still comes back as QB for the Green Bay Packers? I think his quote was something like, uh, "Yeah, if everything else doesn't work out the way we want it to," or something
something
like
like that. Yeah,
that.
it sounds
which,
like they're
which
100%
is
done with this
basically them
prima
being
donna
like, "No,
attitude.
we're fucking done with this
Yeah,
shit."
no, they're done with that. They're gonna. It does look like the likely trade target is going to be the Jets, which is why they're
Yeah,
freeing up all that
it sounds
cap
like it's
space.
pretty much from everything I've heard. It is basically a done deal at
Yeah,
this point.
my understanding is it's
There's
more or less
just
a
some.
done
They're just
deal. I
waiting,
think.
and they got some small pieces that they're
Yeah, and
deciding
I'm
on.
also sure that they're waiting to announce it until the 15th, which is when the new
I think
league.
they also have to wait until they have approval from Rogers, which is why they've been back. Which is why Rogers has gone to talk to the Jets, and the Jets have gone to talk to Rogers.
And there
There's been
may
that
be
back and
the
forth.
idea that he wants to retire or something else, but I don't think so. I
Yeah,
do think he's going to go play in the Jet for the New York Jets.
yeah. I honestly, I think it makes sense for all parties involved. To be honest, I think people have been saying how they're worried about Rogers being a Jet, but imagine he comes out in that first game and just lights it the fuck up. It goes from the Jets being unsure of the Rogers to being the fucking hero of the Jets.
Yeah,
Like it can work out. It can. He's just
they
gotta be
have
the.
they
He just
have a
has to swing with the right momentum right out of the gate.
yeah, and they have a decent line. They have a
Yep.
decent line. They've got a pretty good receiving core. They've got a great young running back. They've got a
Hmm.
hell of a defense. If you
Yep.
put Rodgers in there, I think he wins you an AFC Championship and a trip to the
Yeah.
Super Bowl.
We're talking going. Rogers is so good with how much. No, regardless of the fact that I hate the guy, he's so good. He's the type of player that you look at this Jets team, you go, oh, they're still rebuilding. You put Rogers on that team, and you go, you have instant Super Bowl contenders. That's how quick it goes from rebuild to no, the team's ready to go.
Yeah, exactly. And at that
That's
point,
how that works.
though, what do you do with Zach Wilson? Do you trade him?
They probably sit on him. It sounds like they're gonna sit on him and probably have him sit behind Rogers
I don't know.
and see
Though,
how that changes him if anything happens or not.
I don't think it will. I don't
Because the
think.
thing is, you can't trade him. No one wants him right now.
Yeah, I also don't think that Aaron has any
you might as well
interest in
risk-
mentoring the kid.
No, of course not. Of course not. But the difference is that it's not Rogers that has to mentor. It has to be the kid figuring out that, oh, they brought in Rogers because I'm not good enough, and now I have to learn by watching him. And if I don't, then I will lose out my job.
Okay,
Right.
I can see that. That makes.
So they're gonna watch his attitude to see if he's going to change to actually attempt to learn by watching Rogers, and if he still puts in that blasé attitude, then he's probably just gonna end up getting cut the year after.
There was the Bucks cut a bunch of people.
Yep.
I'm not sure who else. There's been so many people that have just.
Did we talk about before the Derek Carr trade to the Saints? I don't remember if that.
I don't remember if we talked
happened.
about Derek. Well, he wasn't traded.
But
He was
Derek-
signed by the Saints.
Yeah, he's been signed by the Saints. Sorry, yeah, he's been
And
signed
he's
by
one
the
of the
Saints
few that
officially.
would be allowed to prior to free agency because of when he was cut by the Raiders.
Cut, yeah.
So
the
they're
Saints ended
actually
up getting
allowed
their
to
QB.
officially sign him
Yep.
before free agency opens
Yep.
on the 15th. So he
So-
is officially signed. Uh, the franchise taggings. We need to talk about that too.
Oh.
Oh
yep.
my god. Okay, we also need to talk about the fact that Danny Dimes is going to remain a New York Giant. And they came
Oh
to
yeah,
a
he had that big package. I
Yeah.
thought we talked about that, but I don't remember.
I don't think we did. And
I don't
I
remember.
think it's stupid. The the
They're paying
amount
him.
that
They're
they
paying
paid
him
for
almost
him.
more than Carr. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I think there's some incentives in there that allow him to make more than Carr.
Yeah.
Then they franchised Saquon,
Yep. Which makes sense.
which makes sense. And then Lamar got franchised, but
non-exclusive,
he got
yeah.
the non-exclusive franchise tag, which lowers his hit. And then the amount of teams that rushed to say that they were not at all
Not
in on
interested. Yeah.
Lamar. It makes me wonder if they're all in on Lamar and they're just trying to tell everybody they're not in on Lamar.
Not on Lamar. Yeah. The thing is, to be fair, I think there are a lot of teams that it doesn't make sense for them that people have been like, oh, they're gonna go for Lamar. Like, so many people have been like, the Falcons are looking at Lamar. They're not fucking looking at Lamar. They're just not. It doesn't make sense right now. The team
No.
isn't ready at all to go all in on a Lamar. It doesn't make sense.
Mm-mm. It makes no
It
sense
doesn't.
at all.
They need to continue rebuilding with what they got. Desmond Ridder is good enough for now. Could potentially still be really good. You still don't know exactly what you got with the guy. So it just doesn't make sense to then all in on Lamar. It's so dumb. I hate that narrative
Oakland
so
makes
much.
sense.
Oakland makes more sense. Yes.
Oakland makes sense.
Oakland makes sense.
Um,
Honestly, Seattle. Seattle would make sense actually, in my book. They have Gino, but they've already admitted that they could still use their first overall pick to get a QB. So I could see them going all in on Lamar. I really could. The Texans could do it but I think at their second overall pick, like we talked about before, they probably will just take what they got now.
I agree. The 49ers?
They could if they think that the
And it
other two
depends
guys
on
they're
how
worried
they
about.
think Purdy is going along and everything else, but
The Patriots.
that would be an interesting.
That actually would be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Patriots one would be very, very unique.
Yeah.
The Lions?
They could. Jared Goff's had a resurgence, but
Jared Goff has had a resurgence, but I mean,
yeah,
be hard to say no to that. You know what I mean?
Green Bay.
Yeah,
Even if you have Jordan Love, Green Lamar over Jordan.
I still think they believe in Love, but
Really?
if you had a chance to get Lamar, I think you've got to go for that, especially once you dump
Really?
Rodgers' salary.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you're getting a first overall pick probably out of it. I'd be surprised if you're not.
Yeah, I would be surprised if they didn't get one. So
Yeah.
it's a first this year and a first next year. That is
Probably.
that is even if you have two firsts this year, it is a first this year and a first next year.
Oh
That
yeah,
is-
yeah. No, yeah.
That's
yeah.
how the rules. That's how the rules work
That's how
out
it's
for
as
signing
written,
them.
yeah.
I don't know which first it is, and I don't know if that's negotiable or not. I couldn't find. I looked. I scoured around trying to find the rules on it, and all it says is
Yeah.
that it's two firsts. It doesn't tell me how they determine that.
Yeah, how they determine that.
So
That's
I'm going to
probably
assume it
some
would be the
kind
better of the two first rounders that they would have, theirs or
Maybe?
whoever else's they get.
Maybe I don't know. I don't know if it would be. It might be. It might have to be. It might be your original first rounds, whatever
Maybe.
your original ones were.
Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, all I know is that they would give up two firsts, and that the Packers would do that in a fucking heartbeat.
Oh yeah, for Lamar.
I don't think they should.
No, but
Not just because I don't want Lamar in here, but you and I have been like.
They have more rebuilding that they should do before paying Lamar.
And that's something that you and I have kind of been talking about is what franchises deserve a rebuild or need to rebuild. And I think the Packers would be definitively on that list.
They should be there, yeah.
And we'll get
But I think they still are continuing. There's a little bit of... The thing that worries me is that there's some... It feels like they kind of want to go in that phase, but they're not wanting to fully commit to it. Like, it's weird.
Yeah, and we'll get to rebuilds and weird vibes in the Vikings corner, because there's definitely some weird vibes there.
I have a feeling, honestly, thinking about the vibes for Vikings corner, I feel like the Packers are actually attempting to do the same thing, if you think about it, and I'll get to it. But
yeah, but I don't think they
about
have
the
the
moves
pieces to do it.
No, but if you think about the way they're trying to do it, it feels like it's a similar pattern.
It is very similar, and I unless you think that like Christian Watson is going to be your Romeo Dobbs is going to be your
I
Justin
think
Jefferson, and
I think
you
they
think
they had
that
their
Alan
pieces.
Lazard
Yeah.
is your version of Adam
For
Thielen.
some reason, I think they're overestimating what they have. But if that would line up with what it looks like they're doing, though, then it
It
would make
does,
sense.
and I think they're wrong.
I think they're wrong too, but we'll get into that when we get to Vikings corner.
Yes.
But
You have any other NFL news you want to talk about?
I'm trying to think if there is any other NFL news to talk about. I'm trying to remember. There's a lot of rumors, but nothing really concrete.
Yeah.
I mean, we have Kyler Murray getting bashed on by his O lineman again.
Oh God, yes. I totally
so-
forgot about that because it's happened so
Yeah.
much.
I know, right? That happened
One of his
again,
former
so-
linemen, Kelvin Beachum, told him that he needs to grow up.
Yeah, actually, his current lineman.
I thought it was former.
It wasn't former. Okay, I thought it said current, but it might be
I
former.
think Beachum is former.
Okay.
Now.
Either way, it's still not good.
Either way, it's still not good because J.J. Watt kind of said the same thing.
Yeah. There's a bunch of players that have been just telling him, just like, dude, grow up. What the fuck you doing, bro?
And you and I had that discussion after it happened, where our response was, it feels like he only wanted to play football because it was fun. He didn't want to play. He doesn't want to play football now that it's work. He doesn't want to put in the work. He only wants the fun and the recognition and the fame. He doesn't want to do the work.
It's almost like I pointed out too when we were talking, which is, a lot of players have goals in mind, and a lot of players typically have the goal to win a Super Bowl. Like that's a lot of football players' end game, right? I want to win a Super Bowl. But it feels like Murray's was, I want to get into the NFL. Nope, I'm here now. I can relax. I met my goal. Like because it feels like he has talent, but you don't just have raw talent and get as far as he has. He's obviously had to work hard to get somewhere. So he put in as much work as what was needed to make it in the NFL, and now he's in the NFL and he's happy where he is.
Yeah.
So why work any harder? He's happy.
Exactly. So I don't know.
It's weird.
It's very weird. I don't know what I think about it.
I think the kid needs to grow up and grow up fast, because otherwise he's gonna get dropped like a hot potato.
Yeah. Is that what you think, Loki?
So Loki's being a pain in the ass, but that's okay.
But that's Loki.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You love him.
That's what he does. Sometimes.
All right. I don't really have anything else for the NFL. I do have some NHL news that I think is fun.
Yeah, I don't think I got any other NFL news. Not that I can think of, anyways.
All right, so let's start with the fun NHL news. The Flyers GM Chuck Fletcher, after standing pat and doing almost nothing at the deadline, has been fired. Finally. Chuck Fletcher used to be the GM of the Wild as well. And Chuck Fletcher's strategy towards dealing with problems is to load up a gun full of money and shoot it at the problem. He doesn't realize that at that point the problem is still there, it's just now covered in money.
Hey, money sometimes solves problems. You never know.
It does, but it's not the way he would do it. They have named an interim GM with Daniel Briere, who used to play for the organization. He has said that he believes that it might need to be a rebuild, but he doesn't really want it to be. It's not a fire sale, is the way he put it. I'm not selling everything to rebuild. So in other words, he's signaling it's not a Coyotes or a Blackhawks style rebuild. He's going to keep key pieces and get rid of others and try to it feels more like a retool, as we would call it, but he actually did say rebuild. Gotcha. He just said it's not a fire sale rebuild.
Gotcha.
So that's interesting. And you remember we were talking about Jonathan Quick and how we hoped he would play angry Jonathan Quick and stand on his head after being traded to the Vegas Golden Knights. He is 3-0 with a .939 save percentage after he posted an .876 save percentage with the LA Kings. He's playing angry Jonathan Quick. I know it's a small sample size, but something about that, amuses me highly.
Fuck you too, buddies.
So, yeah. And if he winds up helping eliminate the Kings in the playoffs, there's just something about that is... You know? That's perfect. I love it. Okay, I don't really have any other news. Do you have anything?
No.
I mean, the
I don't think
WBC
so.
is going on, World Baseball Classic.
Yeah.
All right. So with that being said, let's go ahead. We're going to get into... We did the offense last week. A lot of the skill positions. We didn't do the O-line.
No.
One of these days we may actually just have to look at the O-line, but that's harder to grade because it's harder to... Yeah. Neither of us really know what we're looking at, and I mean, we can see who's rated highly, but it's a much different... It's a much more difficult position to grade. For us, anyway, because we're not scouts. So, today we're going to do defense. We're going to do cornerbacks, we're going to do edge rushers, we're going to do D-linemen, defensive tackles mainly, safeties, and linebackers. He and I had a very spirited discussion about what constitutes a fucking edge rusher. Because in my mind, an edge rusher is a guy who not only plays with your hand in the dirt, but also plays up like an outside linebacker, meaning... a la Daniel Hunter. Daniel Hunter can play upright as an outside linebacker in a 3-4 scheme, or in a 4-3 scheme, he can play down with his hand in the dirt. He's better on the 4-3 scheme, but he can do the 3-4 scheme. Za'Darius, who's listed as an edge, I've never seen him put his hand down, so to me, he rates out as an outside linebacker who can rush. And I like to make that distinction, but... Well, apparently, that's not how edge is defined.
The thing is, Za'Darius actually does put his hand in the dirt. I've seen it a couple times. He doesn't do it a lot, but he does do it. So that's the distinction here, right? So the way that I'm defining it, and the way I've seen it defined several times, is that edges are a more specifically defined role, right? So not all defensive ends are edges, and not all linebackers are edges, but that doesn't mean some linebackers aren't edges, and that doesn't mean that some defensive ends aren't edges. You see what I'm saying?
This feels like a square and rectangle problem.
It is. It's weird. So typically, from my understanding of edges, is
because all rectangles are squares,
but
not all squares are rectangles.
Yeah, edges are weird, where they are, from my understanding, players that are multifaceted that typically play both a defensive end and, like you were saying, an outside linebacker role. And within that sphere, if you do both at all, you're pretty much an edge. So while you're right, Za'Darius doesn't typically put his hand in the dirt that often, but because he does do it and he can bull rush, he's an edge.
I understand. And so my big thing was... I pulled all of my information from the CBS Sports draft page, and they had a particular. They had a particular player listed as D-line rather than edge, and Chris and I had kind of a little kerfluffle about it, but we made up because we're brothers. And as he pointed out, and I love it, and I'm going to say it here on air because I loved it so much. He and I sometimes have such similar thoughts and personalities that when we don't, it ends up being this like.
Yeah.
It's funny to me because both of us get that way.
And I'll be fair. While you pulled yours from CBS, I pulled mine from PFF, where they have that specific player labeled as an edge.
Absolutely. So I went ahead and said, you know what? We're not going to confuse the audience. We're both going to label him as edge. And
just to make it easy for both of us. And that was the only player that we had any different.
We didn't have any difference of opinion on anything else. So, with that being said, let's start with the edges. We'll start down with me. How many do you have?
I have 6 edges.
I also have 6. So I'll start down with number 6.
Yes.
At 6, I have, and I believe he's from... I think he's LSU.
I didn't put down where any of my guys are from, so
I didn't either. So I think he's LSU.
Apologize.
But I'm not 100%. I know where most of them are from. and that would be BJ Ojulari.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Interesting.
I put him down at 6
not
because...
my choice there, but I get it.
It's just, like, I look at him, and he seems to be more comfortable as an outside linebacker. He doesn't seem to be very comfortable with his hand down. He is...
I don't know. I might disagree
Just
with
what
you on
I
that
saw
one.
in the
We'll get there.
highlights, they had him more often than not coming up
Okay.
as a linebacker from the outside, pushing
Okay.
the pocket.
Okay.
He's incredibly fast. He's got good instinct. He plays very hard. I think he relies on raw athleticism a little more than he should. But overall, he was... And it's not that he's bad. I think he's good. He's
No,
easily,
he's not bad.
in my opinion, a top 15 pick.
I just think it's interesting because I think we saw the same film but saw completely different things and came up with completely different conclusions, but ended up with the same almost grade at the end of the day, which is what makes it hilarious to me.
Which
is why I think this is hilarious.
I'm impressed with him, but I'm not as impressed with him as I was other players, and that's kind of where that happens. Is I don't think he's bad, and I think in other draft years with there being a lack of edge, I think he'd be a much higher pick because he's very good at what he does.
Yeah.
But that being said, I think they're just maybe not always better, but I think there are people that have much higher ceilings. I think that his floor and ceiling are much closer together right now.
Yeah,
and
I can understand that.
I think that kind of, like you were saying about Hendon Hooker, I feel the same way about BJ Ojulari. I don't think he's quite at his ceiling, but I think there's a much smaller gap than you have for other players.
Yeah.
All right.
I actually tend to agree with that one. For my number 6, though, it's actually going to make it kind of funny for me, but at number 6, I actually have Myles Murphy. I have Myles Murphy at 6 here. And the funny distinction that I'm going to make about this is that if he was labeled as purely a defensive tackle, defensive end, like a defensive lineman, like what you had him originally rated, he would be higher up on my list. He probably would have been considered like the number 2 or number 1 in that spot. But because I'm labeling him as an edge, he is lower down because he doesn't fill the edge role as well as other edges do.
I can totally understand that.
But he is very strong. He's a very power-built, power-hungry. He's a pure bull rusher to the core. He's just gonna run you over. He's a very, very strong dude.
You and I saw very different things on that.
Fair enough. Now, granted, that was last year's tape. If there was other year's tapes that you were looking at, that's what I saw on the last year's tape. Of course, I only watched a couple highlight films of a couple games. I didn't watch all of them, but from what I saw, he looked like a very strong, very bull rush heavy kind of player to me.
I think you and I define bull rush differently, possibly too.
Bull rush is exactly what it's supposed to be, which is supposed to be running over players. Basically, you run through the tackle to get to the
I'll
player.
tell you what I saw, and
okay.
Maybe
if you weren't seeing a lot of him like cutting inside or trying to push through players, that's bull rushing. Finessing is when you're trying to like twinkle around people, basically. So he wasn't doing as much of that. He was definitely more bull rush, in my opinion.
So Murphy is my number 5, and for some of the same reasons. I don't think he's very comfortable standing up. I think he's much more comfortable.
He's
with
definitely
his
more his hand in the dirt.
To me, he projects more as a 4-3 defensive end that can push the pocket. He's a old school typical Peppers when he first came into the league, or oh god, I can't even remember, Strahan, or something like that.
Yeah, kind of.
But I didn't see bull. I saw athleticism, and I saw speed.
Yes.
And he doesn't so much run over people as he's got such a quick first step that he's just by them, which makes it look like he's running them over because he's by them before they can get their body turned.
So that's part of bull rushing, is that you're using your speed and your ability to push through and around people. That's bull rushing.
So if you want to disguise that as bull, that's fine. But the problem is he doesn't have club, he doesn't have swim, he doesn't have spin. There's no
spin is finesse and stuff. That's all finesse shit.
But what I'm saying is club and swim aren't. a club move to push
Yeah,
him
yeah,
out of
he's
your way.
clubbing. Yeah, he's not doing traditional power moves where he's like
No,
powering
and
clubbing,
that's the
but he
problem.
is
That's
using a
where I
bold.
was going to
So that's why
say.
I'm saying he's not a power heavy. I guess power heavy. What I mean like bull rushing is like he uses the quick speed to push through people and just
Yeah,
like once they try to
I
grab
can
him, he's
understand.
pushing them off, right?
And so to me though,
I guess it's just like terminology, but
yeah,
yeah,
but to me though, he doesn't have hand fighting techniques. If he gets
I
blocked
mean,
up hardcore by somebody
yeah,
who knows what they're
yeah.
doing, he's gonna get stopped.
It
If
doesn't happen often, but yeah,
It doesn't, but that's the problem. I think that he
yeah,
relies way too much on his athleticism and his first step to get by people. And if he
yeah,
can't, I think he could be neutralized. He does fight through blocks. He's a
yeah. He
very
can
sure
push through 'em,
tackler. He
but
does have good football IQ.
yeah,
Very speedy for his size. Um, I don't know, man. I think he could use a lot
yeah.
of work on his technique, though.
I agree. I agree. But for my number 5, which I mean, similar reasons we've already talked about it, Ojulari, I have him at my number 5. Um, and what I saw wasn't somebody who was super athletic. I saw somebody who I quantify as more of a textbook rusher. And what I mean by that is that he uses. If you can think of a specific technique that rushers use, he has used it. He uses every technique in the book, and he's trying to be as textbook as possible. And it comes across as being highly athletic, but I think he overuses his football IQ and is less athletic. So I think you are right where he's already kind of near his ceiling, right? But I think it's for different reasons than we discussed. So
But we both came up
that's
with the same conclusion.
we came to the same overall rating and conclusion, but for different reasons.
It's one of those things. If you solve this problem completely wrong and somehow got the right answer, I don't know how you did this.
Yes, exactly.
Um,
So, but
yeah,
that's what I saw on tape, which I think makes him a very interesting player because he's not somebody who's just going to get stuffed all the time because he's the type of player he's going to learn the type of styles you like to use for blocking, and he's going to try to use whatever he thinks is the best against you all the time. And he's going to constantly try to adapt to whoever he's playing against.
okay, okay,
And so that's why I have him rated a little higher, is because he's more adaptable in my book.
fantastic. At number 4, I have from Army, Andre Carter the Second.
Really?
Huh?
Really?
What are you looking at? What'd I miss?
No, it's interesting because he's not on my list.
Really?
Yeah.
So let me tell you
So
why.
either I missed him on my list or I didn't rate him highly. I don't remember which because I did do this list.
So
Some of these have been done a little bit ago.
let me tell you what I saw in film with him. First off, he's 6'7". He is a tall bastard. Very big frame. He does seem to be more comfortable as a linebacker, as like an outside edge linebacker, than he does with his hand in the dirt. He's got a very, very long frame. It allows him to get his hands up into the passing lane when he's pushing the pockets that you can't throw to the outside easily. Big hands, big long ass arms. Good.
I just realized. I think. Yeah, I think I know where I. Yep, I dropped him off my list for a different person that I liked that I liked better. That was rated a little lower technically, so it's probably a guy that you don't have on your list.
Probably, I would guess that whoever you have, I don't. But he's got great speed off the edge. He gets into those passing lanes. What I saw of him, he doesn't give up on plays. He likes to hit people. The only question I have is, because he's coming out of Army, that means he's an officer candidate, which means he's going to have a military.
That's true.
He's going to have a military commitment. So I don't know if you're going to be able to work out something with the Army where you could buy him out of that, or if he's going to have to do
I feel like they've done that
drills
before
or something.
So I think they've worked that stuff out before. So I imagine.
Yeah, they have with like Robinson and stuff. Like David Robinson was from the Navy Academy, so they've worked that stuff out before. I'd like to see how they work it out this time, but it is something that a prospective team should be aware of.
Yeah. All right. Well, at my number 4, I have Lucas Van Ness at 4. I would be surprised if he's not on your list somewhere. I would be surprised if he's probably not at number 3. If he's not on your list, I would be really shocked. But he's just a big, freakish athlete. Like, he's just a big fucker. There's not really a better way to word that than he's just a big dude with a big wingspan, and it's just gonna be hard to stop him. He can use his strength to his advantage, but that's not to say he ain't quick. Like,
100%.
He's freakishly quick for how big he is.
He reminds me...
Now the problem is, the only downside, the only reason he's down lower on my list, the only downside is he didn't play as many downs as most of the rest of the players on the list have.
That's the thing.
Which makes it a little smaller sample size. I think if he would have played more, he'd probably be near the top of the list. But he's just, my God, that guy is good.
Yeah. So for me, he is my number 3.
Okay.
And he reminds me a bit of like a J.J. Watt with his length.
Yes.
Like these big ping pong paddle hands that he's fucking got, man. And those big like rackets that he's got on the ends of his fucking hands, man, or the ends of his arms. This is just fucking. Now I also noticed he doesn't just play edge. He doesn't just play outside. He can shift inside too.
He can shift inside. And, he can move pretty much anywhere on the field.
He's a freakishly good athlete about it.
Yeah.
So the thing is, he can play interior line, he can play exterior line, he can play an edge rusher in a 3-4. Yeah. Whatever you want that man to do, he can do.
He can kind of do whatever you need him to do.
Yeah, he's a Swiss utility knife when it comes to, Swiss Army knife when it comes
anywhere
to...
on the defensive line, he can do it.
100%. Even outside line.
Even off ball, not a problem.
100%. And that's why I have him at 3. It's just his utility. He didn't play as many downs, but he did play for Iowa, and Iowa's weird. So
they are weird.
But we're both Minnesotans.
The guy's just good.
Iowegians.
Iowa was weird. But that also goes to the fact that, like, the idea of, like, if you're going to go to play in the middle of fucking nowhere to play football, you better be fucking good at it. And that's Iowa, man.
He absolutely was. Because if I remember right, didn't Hawkinson and Fant both come out of Iowa?
I thought Hawkinson came out of Michigan, but
I thought Hawkinson and Fant both came from Iowa.
They might be. I thought Hawkinson was originally from Michigan.
Because Hawkinson and Fant both came from the same school.
Oh, okay. Well, then that would make sense. Yeah. Yeah, and Iowa's turned out some really good players.
Iowa has turned out some amazing
along
players.
with Wisconsin.
I'm not gonna knock that, but if you're gonna go play football in the middle of nowhere and you're gonna stand out to the draft, you better be fucking good.
Yeah.
So Van Ness, I think, is quite good.
Now, I think this is the player that I think you're gonna do like the spit take on and be like, you have this guy rated this how fucking high?
Go ahead.
But I saw some shit on film that made me really like this guy. I think he got a slightly bad rap a little bit for certain characteristics, but that is just my opinion. I am talking about Nolan Smith. I'm guessing this is the guy that isn't on your list.
He is not. I had him graded out.
He is
about
rated technically
mid-second.
slightly. Yeah, he is rated by a lot of people typically to be more of a second round, maybe an early second at best. I have him actually as a low first grade personally because I think he is good enough to be in the first. He's a real fast, he's a real speedy bitch, but he's also really strong. The only knock against him is that smaller frame, but I think he uses it to his advantage. And that's how he uses his quickness, is with that small frame. It allows him to get to the QB quite often. He puts a lot of pressure on a QB. He's the type of edge rusher that is like, he doesn't play typically too often the linebacker role, but he can because of his quickness. But he's more the guy that's going to be constantly putting pressure on a QB. And I think if you use him correctly, I think he's a really big asset to a team. I don't know. I just kind of loved what I saw on tape. I don't know.
I can see where you're coming from. I didn't really watch much tape on him, but I did grade him out as more of a mid-second rounder. I am worried about the size of his frame. I do think that he might get thrown around a little bit, especially by some of the bigger tackles and guards in the league. Yeah. And I feel like a guy like Derrick Henry might just run right over him. But no shame in that. He runs over a lot of people.
But he's a pretty strong dude, though.
Yeah, I was about to say.
He doesn't miss a lot of tackles when he gets to him, so.
Yeah, he played at Georgia. I don't know how much playing at Georgia with some of the talent he had there helped him again.
Yeah.
But, I can understand where you're coming from. So, moving up for me, number 2 should be fairly obvious to fucking everybody. Tyree Wilson.
Yeah, I got
Tyree
mine too as
Wilson,
well.
he's
I'll just agree with that.
he's a big-bodied player. He's got speed. He's got a good motor. He's a sure tackler. He does seem to be a little more comfortable with his hand in the dirt as a defensive end rather than as an outside linebacker, but he does do both. I honestly feel like whoever drafts him, he's going to make an immediate impact on their pass rush. Instant impact. He's going to push that pocket and...
He's just constantly pushing. He's the definition, in my opinion, of a bull rusher, right? He can do literally
100%.
everything a bull rusher does.
Not only that, he's got good reach. I watched him on one tape
he's got long
where
arms.
he wasn't going to get the sack, but he reached out and he grabbed right in the crook of the arm and caused a fumble of the quarterback.
Yeah.
Just guy never gives up on plays. Constantly seems to know what he's doing. Just a fantastic player, and in fact, in most years, he'd grade out as the top edge rusher, but...
He would, but unfortunately, there is one guy we have both at the top of our list that is just Tyree Wilson on steroids, which is Will Anderson. Will Anderson, my God, the guy is... He is everything Tyree Wilson is, literally the exact same player, just better.
Turned up to 12.
Turned up to 12, man. Like, literally, I hate to say it, but that is exactly what Will Anderson is. He plays almost the exact type of style.
He does. And since we both agree that Wilson is 2 and Anderson Jr. is 1, I literally have written down, is there anything Anderson Jr. can't do?
Yeah, literally. Like, he's just... Like I have Tyree Wilson written down as has long arms. Will Anderson, I have it written down as even longer arms.
It's freakish, dude. The guy is he's voracious. He wants to hit you. He has a nose for wherever the ball is. You can't fake him out. He doesn't get off track very easily. He's
the type of player that is running at 100%. It looks like all the time, and I don't know how. I have no idea, but it looks like he's running at full steam ahead.
Dude, that dude
every
has one
single
speed,
play,
and it's go.
Go. Yeah, like,
you know
I don't
who he
know
reminds
how.
me of? Did you ever watch the movie The Replacements?
With
Keanu
off the
Reeves?
top of my head, I don't remember. Don't think so.
Okay, it's about a football strike, and they go through with replacement players.
Oh, I've heard about it. I have not watched it. Okay.
It's really good. One of the guys in there is the guy who I think directed the first Iron Man movie and played Happy.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But he plays a middle linebacker who has one speed, and it is go. The joke about him in the movie, they said he was a SWAT team officer. He played football until he went into the Army, and then he had to get out, and then he played football for a college again until he could sneak back into the Army for another tour of duty. He's one of those, like, mental cases.
Yeah.
It's some great acting by him, and it's a perfect role, and it fits so well. But no, that's what Will Anderson reminds me of, just a guy whose motor is constantly on go!
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. That guy's just different, man.
Yeah, he's built different. You want to move to the defensive line?
Yeah, we can move on to. I have them labeled as defensive tackles, defensive interior line, whatever you want to call them. I mean,
yeah, mostly interior line, defensive tackles. I have one name on this list.
I got 3. Granted, I think only one of them will likely go in the first round, but I wanted to not call out 2 others.
All right, you go ahead and do your other 2, and then we'll both get to the one that we know.
Yeah. So, at my 3rd spot, I have... I'm probably going to butcher this guy's name. Sayaki Ika? I don't know if that's how you say it.
I know who you're talking about, but that's probably close.
He's a nimble nose tackle, right? He's the type of nose that you can't just like push through or think you can hold him. Like he really is pushing forward the entire pocket. He had 51 pressures last season as a nose tackle. Like, I mean, the guy's good. He's good as a nose tackle. He's gonna make it hard to really move that pocket forward if you want to push a run game on him. He's gonna make it difficult. So he's a pretty solid nose. He's not necessarily might not go first round. He's the type of player that you will probably pick up in a high second, though, I imagine. And the same guy goes for this one. I have him labeled as a late first, more likely early second. But at my number 2, I have Brian Brees. He was the former number 1 overall out of high school in 2020. He unfortunately has not quite lived up to what people were hoping for, but he is still a very versatile athlete. Um, and we do have to remember that he did deal with a lot of issues which caused him to play less snaps than other players, only playing 884. And one of the reasons why was he did have that ACL tear in 2021. So you do have a smaller sample size, but I still think that means that you still have to rate him pretty highly. He still played very well when he did play.
And then, of course,
Number 1.
number 1, Jalen Carter from Georgia.
No questions.
No questions. Despite the legal trouble that he might be in right now, I don't think there's anything there. I think it's all smoke and no fire.
I have him labeled as the all-around complete defensive tackle. Like,
yes, he plays inside, he plays outside. Yeah. He's definitive hand in the dirt player. He pushes at the point of attack. He tackles well. He fights through every block. He never gives up on a play. He's got a great IQ, and for his size, the dude is incredibly fast for how big he is.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, no, the absolute complete defensive tackle, whoever gets him, immediate impact. 100% immediate impact. Mm-hmm. I don't know where he's going to go. I assume top 10, top 5 should be, but I mean, it's pretty sure now that the first 2 picks are going to be quarterbacks, but
I think some of these guys are going to go in the top 10.
Oh, easily they should.
Now, where exactly, I don't know.
Probably going to be Anderson Jr. If it were me, I think he's probably going to go like 6th to the Seahawks.
I could see that.
Yeah, that would make the most sense. Or 5th, or whatever they have. The point is, wherever he goes, somebody's getting a steal. The dude, in some drafts, he would be one of the top 2 or 3 picks.
Yeah, I was going to say, there have been a lot of people saying that if it wasn't for some of these teams needing QBs so bad, he could be potentially...
And for the plethora of really great QBs available in this draft.
He could have been considered like a number 1 overall in a lot of other drafts.
Yep, 100%. Middle linebackers?
I have just linebackers listed, but yeah, we can do that.
Mine are mostly middles, unless you want to consider one of them. You might consider an outside.
I don't even know if any of mine are considered middle linebackers. To be honest,
I know one of mine is specifically because I watched the tape on him.
Okay,
I have 2.
Because I didn't necessarily differentiate the linebackers. I looked at just linebacker tapes and just found linebackers.
There were 2.
Okay.
There were 2 that made my list.
So we'll see if we have similar players or not. If we do, great. If we
How
don't,
many do you
then
have?
I guess whoopsies. I have 3.
All right, you can go first and give me your 3rd.
Okay, my 3rd I have as Jack Campbell.
Okay.
He's got the right kind of size for a linebacker you'd like to have. He plays pretty well. The only downside is he's just not as crazy athletic as you'd like, because he has like the perfect body size ratio for being a linebacker. He fits the bill for what you would expect a linebacker to look like. But for some reason, he's just not quite as athletic as you would hope for in that position, which is why I have him at my 3rd spot.
All right. Who do you have at 2?
At 2, I have Drew Sanders at number 2.
Ooh, really?
Yeah, I have Drew Sanders at number 2.
Okay.
A former edge. Before he ended up going to college, I believe. I think he was an edge in high school. Might have played edge a little bit in college, but I know he got moved officially to being just a linebacker. He's more of an off-ball linebacker specifically. Did end up getting 11 sacks over his time being a linebacker, which is pretty good actually. Very few missed tackles, but there are some, which is the downside. That is a worry, is that he does sometimes miss tackles, specifically runners, when he gets tripped up on run plays sometimes. And so some people are like a little worried about that, because they're like, well, if you're going to play that position, right, you got to be able to recognize the run right away. But being that he did switch from being an edge to more of a specific linebacker, I think if he plays that just a little bit more, gets a little bit more experience doing it, he'll be just fine. And he did end up getting better overall later in the season, as the season went. So I think I think he's a pretty solid player.
All right, for me at number 2, I have Trenton Simpson.
Ah, okay, interesting.
He plays both inside and outside. I think he grades out better as almost an edge rusher because he's very quick. He rushes the quarterbacks quite well. He doesn't put his hand in the dirt, but he's a very good outside linebacker for rushing the quarterback. He's okay in coverage, but he does tend to get beat a little bit in coverage on occasion. But he's good at tackling. I think he's mostly a pass rusher, and that's my biggest knock on him, is that if you wanted to use him as like a middle linebacker or even as a coverage, he's not a coverage outside linebacker. He's going to be more of a pass rusher for you. He's also not going to be, he can run stop, but he's freakishly athletic, but I feel he's mostly better used to rush and pressure a quarterback than he is anything else.
So, interestingly enough, that's where I have Trenton Simpson. I have him at number 1 on my list. And the reason why is for some of the similar reasons you brought up already, which is he is very good at pressuring and getting to a quarterback. He is very heavy in that. And while he does have some issues in coverage, the difference that I see is I see him as somebody who has a big frame, who's crazy athletic, who you can easily teach that to. And I think with that, that makes him overall a higher value player over over Sanders, in my opinion. I just think he's more athletic, which means that he's got a higher upside. So basically I'm rating his ceiling higher, which means in my opinion he ends up being a higher overall. Because while their floors are similar, I think his ceiling is higher, personally.
Maybe.
But that's just a personal preference.
Yeah, no, and that's why I have Drew Sanders at 1, because I think he's very good at diagnosing plays and attacking them quickly. Even if he's wrong, he still attacks the play very quickly.
That's true. That's true, yes.
I watched him absolutely decleat some people with hits, too.
Yeah.
Like, the man is like a guided missile when he hits you. It's...
No, I agree.
Big thumper. He's got pretty good hands, lurks well in the spy. You don't even see him there until all of a sudden he pounces on the ball coming over the middle. He is not the fastest player on the field, but he takes good angles to attack.
Yeah.
He does diagnose the angle he needs to take quite well, and he did get better as the season went on at diagnosing and understanding the plays. My one knock is that he's not small, but he looks small. If you look at him on film, he could stand to put on just a touch of bulk up just a little bit. But either way, I still have him higher than Simpson. I think Simpson does potentially have a higher ceiling, but going off of raw athleticism, where they don't,
it is tough. I understand.
It is because if you go off that idea, Kyler Murray should be a hell of a lot better than he is.
Yeah,
so you have to know that Simpson would be willing to learn.
Yeah, I agree. But to be fair, if you remember back when Kyler Murray got drafted, he did get rated very highly due to his athleticism. So I'm kind of only just following the trend of that.
Yeah, no, but that's why I'm looking at it from a different standpoint.
Yeah.
To me, like, for example, you wouldn't rate Larry Bird high because of his athleticism. Larry Bird gets rated high because he understood basketball and could beat you mentally.
Though, to be fair, he was pretty athletic, too.
Not really.
He wasn't athletic. He was actually fairly athletic. He wasn't as athletic as... He's more athletic than people remember he was, to be honest.
Yeah, but even the players who played against him were like, the dude didn't run fast, he couldn't jump, but you turn your head for a minute and suddenly he's hitting a fadeaway.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was what it was, is Larry was 6 steps ahead of you.
Yeah. No, I know. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm only rating the athleticism because I only think that they have... I think that, put it this way, I think that athleticism brings in more into this role only when it comes to trying to be more of a coverage guy, right? I think that's the one thing in his game he's missing is coverage.
And what I'm going to say,
and he needs that athleticism.
You know what Sanders reminds me of a little bit? Zach Taylor from the Dolphins.
A little bit.
I would like him to see more. I would like to see a more Brian Urlacher, but
yeah,
I don't think we're going to get that out of him.
Okay, that's fair.
Corners?
Yeah, let's do corners. Let me see how
We'll do
many I got
corners and
here.
then we'll do safeties. I think your
I
bird is eating
got
your hair.
yeah. No, he likes to preen hair. He's weird. Uh, I have 4 corners.
I have 5 corners.
Oh, interesting. Okay, well, give me your 5 because I only got 4.
All right, my 5 is from South Carolina, and it is Cam Smith.
Oh, interesting. This
You
is
had him
already
rated higher,
spicy.
didn't you?
I do. This is already spicy. I like
This
this.
is spicy. So, I'm not going to say he's bad.
Okay.
He's very good. He's got good athleticism. He doesn't hit like some of the other corners on the list, so you're not going to use him in run support.
That's true.
He's also not going to knock the ball out too often when it comes to hitting someone, but he's got good hands. He reads passes well. He jumps routes well. He's got good hip movement. There were others that I liked better. And that's really what it boils down to. I don't dislike him, and I don't think there's a major flaw in his game, but I had to make a judgment call. And literally,
That's
him
fine.
and the guy I have rated 4 could be flip-flopped.
Fair enough.
The other 3, I think, are miles ahead of both of them, in my opinion.
Okay. Fair enough. I'm curious to see what we got.
All right.
Do you want to go 4 or do you want me to
I'll
go
go 4 real quick now.
Okay.
So at 4, I have from Georgia, Kaylee Ringo. Kaylee?
Interesting. Okay.
I have written...
So there's the one that I don't have on my list. All right.
And a lot of people don't. He's fallen out of favor with some people, and I don't know why. I don't know what the knock on him is.
To be honest, when I watched film, I just wasn't impressed. That's really all
I
I came
did
down
see
to.
that he's, to me, good shutdown corner. He has good speed. He breaks well on the ball in the air. I don't think he hits as well as what I would like him to, but he could go bottom of the first round, and I would not be unhappy to see the Vikings grab him.
I would not. No. I see him as like a mid-second at best.
See, I see him potentially bottom of the first. That's just me.
Yeah, I disagree.
He could
but that's
sneak
okay.
back into the first. I think he's got the talent for it, but I didn't. Remember, I made this list before combines, so I don't know how he graded out in the combine.
I think that's probably why people are having him drop, because I don't think he had as favorable as a combine as he probably
And that's entirely
went.
possible, so he could have dropped to a mid-second.
Yeah.
But I made my list for last week.
I've made my list over the last couple days, so
yeah, my list is from last week.
I'll be fair, most of mine are probably
week
been
before
after
last.
the combine.
Was supposed to be the list. We were actually going to do skill positions, not just offense. And Chris didn't get around to finishing his corners.
Yeah.
So we left them off and decided to do them.
Move some stuff around. Yeah.
So
okay.
Yeah.
So at 4, I actually have Joey Porter Jr. At 4. Yeah. He is definitely a press corner. He's very efficient. I just wasn't as impressed as I was hoping for. He just seemed like a good corner. Just a very good corner, right? Like nothing was special to me, I guess, is the way I would put it. He wasn't amazing at anything. He's just good. He's very, very good. Does that make sense? Like that's not a knock.
And that's kind of what
I'm trying not to be a knock about it, but you know,
I think I took something else away from that than you did.
That's fair, and that's totally honest. There might be something I'm missing from it, and that's fine. But from what I saw, I just saw a really good corner, and that was about it, which is fine. That's a first-round corner. That's still a good corner, you know. But to me, I saw other things that made other players more special, in my opinion, which is why he's just rated lower. And one of the players, I think, is where you're going to disagree with me, which is fine.
Dude, if you put Cam Smith at 1, you're an idiot.
Well, no, I didn't do that, obviously.
You probably put him at 3, which I can understand. I disagree with it, but I could understand it.
Yeah.
At 3, I have Joey Porter Jr.
That's fair enough.
Okay. And what I got out of that was that I saw a really good coverage back. And what I got was more his intelligence about the man always seems to be in the right position to reach an arm around and bat the ball away from you. He didn't get a lot of interceptions that I saw, but he always seemed to be lurking right around a receiver, and he always seemed to have that arm ready to go to swat it away from you.
I find this very interesting that this is the way that you saw him, because this is going to make my next pick very interesting.
And that's kind of what I saw, is that he just always seemed to be in the right spot at the right time. And you don't get to do that based on just...
Being annoying. Go away. Sorry. Go ahead.
You don't get to do that just based on being a good corner. You get to do that based on instinct and understanding of plays. So I think he diagnoses things well, too.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, I'm done. I think I'm going to guess this is where you're going to put Cam Smith, and you're going to tell me that's the same thing you saw in him.
Yeah. I got Cam Smith at 3, and I have Lily written down that he plays very instinctively. He just happens to know where the ball's going to be at the right place. He's not built like the rest of the guys. He isn't going to hit you real fucking hard, but he has great playmaking. He's definitely got the ability to be a ball hawk. He's just always at the right place at the right time, man. Like, it's funny that we saw that from two different players.
I'm not gonna say that you're wrong, because, like I said, he's got great hands. He's got good ability to break on the ball. As Cam Smith does. I didn't, for some reason, I didn't come away as impressed with him as you did.
Yeah, I
and that's
think
okay.
It's funny that we got the same reading book from different players.
I'm going to assume that our 2s and 1s are very similar.
Probably. They probably might even be the same thing. They're probably the same. Yeah.
They should be, because number 2 for me is from Oregon, and it is Christian Gonzalez.
Yeah, number 2.
He is a very good tackler in space. He's got good length. He's long.
Very, very graceful for how big he is.
Actually. Oh yeah, like gazelle would be the term.
He makes it look. Yeah, he's almost like. Have you ever seen Byron Buxton? You know, from the way he runs, he kind of looks like that tall, lanky guy, but he makes it look smooth.
He makes it look so smooth, and he's good in both man and zone. He's got great hands. He's got decent speed.
He can kind of do it all when it comes to a corner. Like, he really can kind of do it all.
Yeah. If it weren't for Devin Witherspoon,
who can really actually do it all.
Who can actually do it all. Not only that, Devin Witherspoon, I have literally written down, hits like a truck.
I have, hits like a truck. Didn't allow a touchdown all last season, by the way. No touchdown allowed at all last season.
Considering he plays it for Illinois in the Big Ten.
Only allowed 22 catches out of 63 that were targeted at him. Like, I have literally written down, boy does what he wants on the field, leave him alone.
Pretty much. Decent hands,
if you see Witherspoon down the field, don't throw near him. Like, you're not going to win that fight.
You're not going to win that fight. Solid tackler, great tackler, hits like a Mack truck, great football IQ, good hands, great closing speed, very instinctual player, too. Like,
honestly, the best player that Illinois had, Devin Witherspoon. It's not even a question.
There's no question about that. I think he's the best player Illinois has seen in.
Probably almost a decade, probably.
Like, the last guy I know that I had any hype around him wound up being a nobody in the NFL, and that was Aurelius Ben, who I thought should have been better than he was. But it's a whole other story.
This guy. Devin Witherspoon is the real fucking deal, and not to say that Christian Gonzalez isn't gonna be a starting number 1 corner for somebody.
No, but those two guys are
Devin Witherspoon, man. Fuck me.
It's Witherspoon and Gonzalez and everybody else, and that's literally the way it works out.
If you were to ask me which one I'd rather play against, I would probably say Gonzalez, but I still would lose.
I still wouldn't like it. I'm
still not gonna like it.
Can I take the option 3 and just walk away?
Yeah, right. Can I just not play instead?
Can I just not do that? Yeah. Safeties?
Yeah. I think safeties is the last one, isn't it?
That's the last one we have for this. I have 2. How many do you have?
I got 4.
All right, go ahead. Hit me with your 4 and your 3.
Now I will be fair on this one. The 2 that I have of the bottom 2, 4 and 3, both are technically rated at high seconds, potential low firsts. So I wanted to leave them on the list just because they could slide in for the right team, but more than likely stay seconds. But for my number 4, I have JL Skinner. He is definitely a box safety specific role. So if you need a box safety, he fits that mold to a T. He is what is labeled, or what I found to be labeled as a tight end eraser. He's great at basically covering up tight ends, making tight ends very difficult, and that makes him really good for being that type of safety, especially at the end zone, because a lot of quarterbacks love to target their big, tall tight ends in the end zone. this guy's going to make it very difficult for those tight ends. His range is only average, which is the downside, and his I mean, he just has some other issues that just makes him a little lower, but he's a pretty good player. He's a pretty good safety. But because of the fact that he has some issues here and there, he is going to probably end up being a second, but still a very good player. At number 3, I have Jamie Robinson. He is a very do-it-all safety. He is very experienced. He's a difference maker, very athletic. Some people can probably ask me, why is he at 3 on my list? That's because the other 2 guys are just that much fucking better. To be honest with you, like, if it wasn't for them, Jamie Robinson would actually be like a top-rated safety, and he still is in my book. I still think he's gonna end up getting late first round because he is really a very good safety still.
I don't.
He has a high ceiling.
Yes.
But number 2, I assume we have probably the same 2 and 1, maybe in a different order. But you go ahead with 2.
I have Antonio Johnson at 2.
Okay, yep, I have Antonio Johnson too.
What I have written down is he's mostly going to be a run support box safety. He's going to play up in the box a lot. He's going to come up and make big hits. He hits like a truck. Massively powerful guy.
Yeah.
He's
got high acceleration for how big he is. Though.
Exactly. And now he doesn't have the best range as a safety, so he's not going to be in coverage a lot. Don't count on him to be picking off the ball, but if you want somebody to come up and stop a guy like Derrick Henry, this is your dude. He's going to decleat people, and he's going to make a life miserable for running backs 110% of the time. And if you go across the middle as a tight end or as a wide receiver, he is going to make you feel it. You are not going to have a good time.
Yeah. Now, I will say the one thing that does draw some concern is that he did play kind of one very specific role within the Aggie system.
Yeah.
And so people are questioning how well can he play other roles. Can he only do that one role?
He basically played the role of smash you in the face.
Yeah, so some people are like a little worried, like, can he do the other things really well? I think probably yes, but because we haven't seen it as much on tape, it makes it a little... That's why he's probably not number 1, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, he potentially could have been, but he's just... There's just some things you wish to see more on tape that you just don't have.
Then, of course, you and I probably have the same number 1. From Alabama... Brian
Branch. Yeah.
I have literally
written down...
Yeah, I have literally written down a more athletic Steve Atwater.
Dude, literally, the only thing I have written... Well, I shouldn't say only. I have a couple things written down. But the one big one I have written down is he's only ever missed 4 of his career tackle attempts. 4. Ever! That is fucking ridiculous.
He rattles his teeth, too. When he hits you, you can feel your teeth go...
God. He had 290 snaps in his fucking true freshman career. Just his freshman.
Yeah, and he plays well in coverage. He can rush the quarterback.
Man. Like, he's
literally, I have written down
him to
a
be.
More well-rounded safety you won't find.
Yeah, he's probably the most reliable nickel player, too, that I can think of.
Oh, God,
like, he's just... Honestly, I don't think you could get a better player here, period.
No, and you know what? If he falls for whatever goddamned reason, I would love for the Vikings to get their hands on, especially if we trade away.
I don't see how he could fall that far.
I don't see how he could fall that far either, but I would adore getting my hands on that guy.
Oh yeah, Brian Branch would be just insane.
So good. All right.
Especially because we ended up losing Kendricks, right? We ended up cutting Kendricks, so...
Yeah, we ended up cutting Kendricks, but he's more of a middle linebacker.
He is more of a middle linebacker, but, I mean, this would not be a good pairing up. Like, if you're really going to end up, like... Who's our safety right now? It's Harrison Smith, isn't it? So
Smith and...
You pair him in there with Smith, potentially move Smith. That gives you the option.
I was going to
say
if Smith, if we have to cut Smith or get rid of him for salary cap reasons, Branch would be a great.
Because our other safety back there is
Sendejo.
Is it Sendejo?
I don't remember. No,
wasn't that rookie who got injured?
Rookie Sign?
Oh no, what's his name? The one that got injured, right?
That's what I'm talking about. Wasn't it Sign?
Yeah, Lewis Seen, I think it is. Yeah.
That would be fun.
That would be Brian Branch and Lewis Seen in the backfield. Jeez, that's a scary combo.
Yes.
Like, come on.
Yes.
That would be fun.
That would be fun.
I don't think it's going to happen, but that would be fun.
No, that would be fun, though.
And that would also give you a really good young core to build around for your defense as well.
Yes.
And that would be perfect for a Brian
God,
Flores
yes.
type team, too. Like, there's just so much that would be good about that.
Oh, 110%. All right. That's the end of that. We didn't do O-line. I can tell you the two top guys that I have on my O-line are Skorinsky and, or Sokorinsky, whatever the fuck his name is from Northwestern, and Paris Johnson Jr.
Okay.
Those are some big names. They're probably going to go top 10. One of them will.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
So, they're good. It's hard to grade. And I don't think there's one tight end, I think, that might get a first round grade. The kid out of Notre Dame.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Meyer, whatever his name is.
I think it's Meyer, but I don't remember.
But we're not going to grade them either. So we will eventually, in the next coming weeks, we will do a mock draft of the first round, and we'll see how our drafts look. Because I think it's gonna. We're not going to do back and forth. Each of us will.
Yeah, we're just waiting until free agency starts mostly dying out because we want to make sure that we see what teams need what actual players before we start doing our draft.
I think it's going to be funny because we're not going to go back and forth in draft. I want us to each
we're each going to have our
and
then
compare who we have where.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, that one's going to take a little bit more effort from us, but we'll get there.
We'll get there eventually. Do you want to do the Vikings corner
now? Sure. I mean, I don't know. I think we have Vikings corner. Do you have a hockey corner this week?
I do have a hockey corner because I do have my power rankings.
Okay.
Do you want to do that first, or do you want to do a Vikings corner first?
We can do Vikings corner and then end on a hockey corner. I don't see why not.
Because you had talked about wanting to talk to me about the Vikings rebuild.
Yes.
Or maybe not rebuild.
Well, their quote unquote rebuild philosophy, I guess, is the way I'll put it, and that's because that's the way they put it. I just thought it'd be interesting because you and I have both expressed kind of our thoughts on rebuilding teams, and while we don't have the exact same idea, we have a lot of similar ideas.
Mm-hmm.
But it was interesting because I was looking at Kwesi and O'Connell and watching their interviews and then listening to them talk about their kind of rebuild philosophy and what they have kind of coined it to be. I don't know if they necessarily coined it, but that's what they've been calling it, which is competitive rebuilding is what they call it. Which by itself doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't really necessarily tell you what they mean. But more or less what they're saying is they want to be able to rebuild a roster, but also stay competitive. Which in itself sounds like a fucking oxymoron, because it doesn't sound like something that's even possible or potentially able to do. So you might be asking yourself, how are they doing it? The idea is that they bring in younger talent or some other younger talent or other talent that they think is really good to replace current expensive older talent that they don't think will be as good. So basically you're rating out going, okay, this guy is costing us X amount of money right now. How much value is he providing us? Oh, we can bring in this younger guy who costs X amount, who's cheaper, who isn't at the same spot that the older guy is at, but might have a higher ceiling or equal ceiling, but we won't have to pay him as much at the moment. So it's the idea of almost shedding skin, right? Like you're getting rid of the dead skin for the new skin, and the idea is that you're slowly getting rid of the older expensive stuff for newer stuff that is of equal value or almost equal value, and that way you're staying competitive while also still being able to move out and rebuild a roster that can still stay competitive and potentially continue making runs at playoffs and Super Bowls. And the idea on paper sounds wonderful because if you can pull it off, it's great. The problem, I think, is if you make 1, 2, maybe 3 bad judgment calls of, hey, we're going to release this veteran guy who we think only has X value, but it turns out he has double the X value you thought he had because he still had another fucking tank in his gas, inside, right? Like, he goes to another team and all of a sudden he puts up one of... I know I said that backwards.
You did.
But you know what I meant.
I was zoned out until you said that, and then I heard another tank in his gas, and I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to keep rolling through the punches. I know how dumb it sounded. I'm going to keep going. But let's say he ends up still having way more gas in his tank than you thought he did. And you ended up moving off of him, and he goes to a different team for cheaper than you were paying him, and he ends up being a star over there. Shit, that was a bad call on your end. And then you end up bringing in another guy who maybe isn't as good. Oh, man, now all of a sudden your competitive rebuild ain't looking so competitive anymore.
Well, here's what I'll say.
You see what I'm saying? So I think it's a good idea on paper, but I feel like if you make too many of those mistakes,
you can't afford to make too many of those, but it's not the end of the world because you can point out that, hey, he signed a smaller contract with them because people saw what we saw.
Yeah.
And then he ended up being better. Okay.
That's true.
Hey, that happens. But the reason he signed a lower deal is because everybody else saw exactly what we saw.
Yeah.
And, we saved money on the cap by doing this. And we
I agree.
Blah, 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 blah. So that's a thing. Like, that would be like saying if we got rid of Kirk Cousins, if we axed him, right? Just released him outright. And then he went somewhere and won a Super Bowl. Oops, that was a mistake. No, it fucking wasn't.
No, right.
Especially not if he signs with them for like 10 million instead of the 40 or 30 million or whatever he is signed with us,
Right.
And then he wins a Super Bowl. Okay, no, congratulations to Kirk for that, but nobody thought he had that in him, and the reason that he's not making anywhere close to what he was is because everybody else saw what we saw.
Right. No, I understand.
Yeah, so...
But you know what I'm saying, too, like, I think the idea on paper is a good idea, but I think there's a lot of flaws and holes that could potentially be concerning.
Potentially, yes. It sounds like they're trying to retool. It also sounds like what the Flyers
It's more like what we define as a retool, yeah.
Yeah, and it sounds like that's what the Flyers were talking about as well.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a fire sale. They still want to keep talent around. They want to keep the talent that they earmark as like, for Minnesota, I think Dalvin Cook is up for trade. I think Zadarius Smith is up for trade. I think for the right price, you could also get Daniel Hunter or Harrison Smith. Kirk Cousins, Cook. If I already said Cook, I forget.
Yeah, you did.
But
but like we've already pointed out, it's got to be competitive. So they have to get enough value out of it that they can stay competitive.
It's not just going to be draft picks. What do you have available for us too?
Yes,
make it make sense.
Make it make sense. Exactly.
And I think that's going to kind of be where we're looking now.
Yeah, I guess the way I'll put it is that my only concern with it is that we've talked about the concern with doing this is that it can come across as being Band-Aid-ish if you do it wrong.
If you do it wrong. You've got to do this right.
Because you can easily start slipping down that slope of all of a sudden now Band-Aiding, and then all of a sudden now the organization that maybe if you would have just let it slip and slide all the way down to a full rebuild and just reset the whole fucking thing is now taking 10 times longer than it should.
Mm-hmm.
So you can only stay competitive rebuilding if you have already a good core to stay competitive rebuilding.
Now, here's what I'm going to
say. So my only concern is what happens is when this core falls apart and you haven't replaced it properly. Now, if you continue replacing things properly, you can stay in this competitive rebuild phase for fucking ever, basically. Which is the idea, is that you stay here forever. That's how dynasties are built, is being able, like the Patriots did it for so long because they were just able to continue rebuilding their core with younger talent and stuff. But there's a point where, like the Patriots have already found out, well, when certain parts leave and your core falls apart, all of a sudden, now what do you do?
Yeah.
Maybe you have to go to a full rebuild, and the Patriots, I don't think, have committed to doing that, and I think they're in a weird position now.
They are. So here's the thing that I will say.
Same thing with the Packers, as we've discussed.
If it starts not working, you cannot be afraid. If you're going to do this competitive idea, when it stops working, because eventually it will, when it stops, you cannot be afraid to pull the plug and go on to a full, we're going to empty out, fire sale. We've run the competition as long as we possibly can. This core is gone. We don't have the right
And we
pieces.
haven't replaced the new core properly.
Yeah,
you know,
and
anymore.
there's been some mistakes that were made, so we're gonna have to go ahead and empty out and start over.
Yeah.
And you can't be afraid to do that.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
we'll see how it works out, and we'll see in a couple of years if it doesn't work, if they're afraid to pull the plug.
And that's what my concern is, to be honest.
Yeah, and I'm going to be interested to see how they do. I think it's going to be interesting. I'm going to also be interested to see what they do in free agency, who else they let go, who they trade.
Honestly, I think this year is a big year to decide how this rebuild phase will go for them.
Because so far from what I've seen, they haven't extended or reworked Kirk's contract, so they've got some bank there with me for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious. I think it's gonna be. I think this free agency, along with the draft, will be a big determination on what the Vikings' future is going to be. Because
I 100%
if they pick up, for example, if they pick up a QB in the draft, you know exactly what that means. You know what the future is going forward from there. If they don't pick up a QB in the draft and they re-sign Cousins, well, then you know what that future is already. You see what I'm saying? Like, this year is actually very big for for the Vikings leadership. It's going to really decide what the next 2 to 3 years are going to look like.
100%.
So,
100%.
I think that's why as a Vikings fan personally, I'm very interested, staying closely, kind of watching what's going on, because I think that this is a big turning point year to see. Do we continue down the same path, or do we finally take that switch up that I think
100%.
the Vikings need?
I would like to see. You know what? You mentioned it, and I think I would like if any of our fans out there. I know we've got 14 of you.
Yay!
Yay! If any of you want to, or anybody that isn't subscribed that's just rolling through, let us know. Want to see us take some of these teams and pull the plugs on them and see how you would rebuild them. Let us know. We don't have a problem attempting that. In fact, we think it would make a great segment.
Yeah.
But again, that's something we kind of want to. Is there any interest in having us do that? You know, would you guys like that?
Yeah, so. If we did something like that, that'd probably end up having to be like a different video from our podcast, right? It would have to be a secondary
it would be
video.
like my trade dissections.
Would that be something you'd want to? Yeah, would that be something that people would be interested in? Is that something people want to watch? Yeah.
So
I think it's an interesting concept on paper, but you know, we don't want to dive a bunch of hours into something that, you know, people aren't going to be interested in. So
breaking news.
Well, I haven't gotten anything yet.
I did. Commanders and defensive tackle Deron Payne have reached a 4-year, $90 million deal. I believe they had franchise tagged him.
Oh, yeah, mine just came through. Okay.
So.
Nice.
Yep. I wanted to put that out there.
You know, to be honest, kind of expected.
Yeah. I figured they would get a deal done with him.
Yeah. Kind of expected. I mean, they should have probably gotten it done a little earlier, but...
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yep. All right. I don't have anything else for Vikings Corner, do you?
No, I think we kind of... I was actually surprised at how quickly we kind of came to the same kind of consensus.
Yeah, we came to a very good consensus on that, and I think that doesn't surprise me all that much, because I think we both have the same worries and fears about it, but we also both see how it could be beneficial if done right. The question is, can it be done right, and do we have enough trust in KOC and Udofa Mensa to do it right? And that's where we've got to, you know, cross our fingers and hope that they've got this thing figured out.
I mean, they did pretty successful for the first year, so I'm
more
interested in this second year.
I don't have any reason not to trust them for right now, so let's see what happens.
Yep.
All right. So we're going to move on to the hockey corner, where I have a power rankings again. And I can guarantee you that this is going to upset Chris.
Probably.
100%. So I will also state that I did these and then haven't really adjusted them, because I took into account Friday mornings. Friday morning is when I did this. So this includes all the games from the last time we talked about it up through Friday morning. I haven't adjusted for Friday evening's games and Saturday's games, because there were some weird shit that happened in both of those, including the fact that the Wild lost Kirill Kaprizov for 3 to 4 weeks. off of what I consider to be a pretty questionable hit.
What you gonna do?
So, we'll start at number 10. I have the Dallas Stars.
Oh, okay.
By the way, there are two teams that are no longer in the power rankings this week. They completely fell out.
Nice.
The Dallas Stars in their last 10 are 5-3-2 as of Friday morning. They have 83 points, and they are currently leading the Central Division in the West. I think they look good with Max Domi now. He's providing a scoring punch for them. I think that's going to help. I think overall they're starting to pull out of that nosedive they were in for a little bit, but they got to be careful because there's a team further up this list that is absolutely breathing down their neck. At number 9, up one spot from last week, the Los Angeles Kings, who in their last 10 are 7-2-1 for 84 points. They're starting to turn it around. They're starting to look better. They made some good trades at the deadline, and it looks like everything they did is starting to pay off for them. Their biggest problem is still going to be goaltending. They allow the most goals off of shots, but they play good defense in front of them so that you don't get as many shots on them. It's kind of a catch-22 with them.
Yeah.
At number 8, a team from New York, but it's not the Rangers, it is the Islanders, who in their last 10 as of Friday morning were 7-2-1. They only have 76 points right now, and they're a little far back in the standings. They are a wild card team currently, but they've been playing really good hockey since getting Bo Horvat. They've started to finally come around, and Sorokin has been on his head in the goal for them. I think that's been fantastic for them. I think they've been playing quite well. I think they've got a good chance to make the playoffs, but they're going to be a wild card team. But they have impressed me over the last 10. At number 7, down a couple of spots, the Vegas Golden Knights. In their last 10, they are 6-2-2. They have 84 points, and they lead their division out in the Pacific. They haven't been playing bad, and I think Jonathan Quick coming in actually has helped them quite a bit. He's been standing on his head and playing goalie at a rate that is just stupid. So I think he's going to help them quite a bit. I think they're gonna easily make the playoffs, and they're gonna make some noise when they get there. At number 6, the team from Colorado, the Avalanche. Last 10, they are 6-3-1. They only have 76 points. Had I made these this morning, they might have been lower because it took them overtime to beat the Coyotes. And it took Cale Makar being Cale Makar to beat the Coyotes. But I still think they've got some growing pains with getting everybody back in the lineup. I think they'll be fine. I think everything will be okay, and I think they're going to go on another deep playoff run, more than likely. At number 5, the Minnesota Wild. I moved them way up because this last 10, they are 8-0-2. They have 81 points. And one of those 2 was one I watched against Calgary, where it was 0-0 after overtime, and they lost in the shootout. And they should have won, but it was a garbage call about Spurgeon being offsides because he was skating backwards into the zone, and he technically had control of the puck, but he was also technically just about to pass it. So they said that because even though his stick was right there and he could have regained control of the puck instead of passing it, that he didn't have control of the puck anymore, and thus he would be offsides. Even though he scored on that play. So dumb. So dumb.
Shit.
Yeah, I was not happy about that. But, point is, They are 8-0-2 in their last 10, and they've been looking really good. At number 4, with 86 overall points, and in their last 10, they are 7-3-0, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, they did lose Ryan O'Reilly for an extended period as he has a broken finger. They've had a couple of other guys out. Luke Shen, who they just got, is out because he and his wife are in the process of having a little baby Shen. I believe that he has arrived into the world at this point. So congratulations to Luke Shen being a dad. They tried an experiment that worked last night against Edmonton, where they didn't list a right wing on the second line, and then they ended up playing defenseman Justin Hall as a right winger, according to the daily lineups, daily face-off. And then they won 7-4. I don't know, man. I don't know. That's the problem with Toronto. I don't know. I don't know what I'm looking at half the time.
Right.
Number 3, dropping one spot from last week, the New Jersey Devils, who in their last 10 are 7-2-1, and they have a total of 90 points. Again, New Jersey's on a fast track to make the playoffs, and considering that like 3 years ago, this was a team that you would constantly laugh at for putting the puck in their own net. They couldn't get anything right. And to see them now, they're going to the playoffs and they're one of the best teams in the East. It's just mind-blowing to me. So congratulations, New Jersey fans. You have a good hockey team again. Number 2, the Carolina Hurricanes. Last 10, 8-2-0. They have 94 points. Yeah, they're going to the playoffs as well. Under head coach Rod the Bod Brindamore. They are a mean team. They know what they're doing. They've just added extra players. They keep getting better. They're going to be a fantastic team. I don't know that they're going to be able to win the East, but they're at least going to give everybody a shot.
Right.
And number 1, with a last 10 of 9-1-0, and at one point in time they had a 10-game winning streak with 103 points, and having clinched a playoff spot already in early March, the Boston Bruins. Yeah, all of that is true. In fact, they have now set an NHL record for being the earliest team to clinch a playoff spot. It's dumb. It's just dumb. And you can be as mad as you want, but it's just dumb. Yeah, I'm angry too.
Alrighty then.
Happier news?
I don't know if it's going to get much happier than that.
No, it can get happier.
Oh, camera.
Connor McDavid might get 170 points this year.
I don't know if that's necessarily happier news, but all right.
Well, I mean, he doesn't play for Boston. He plays for Edmonton.
It's true, but still.
He's already got over... Let me look at it. Because I looked at his stats the other day, and I was... It's just... Because he got he broke his old season-high points total. And it's just ridiculous, his level of stupid this year. Because currently he's sitting on a total of, in 67 games, he has 127 points. He has 55 goals and 72 assists. It's not impossible for him to wind up with 70 goals and 100 assists. That is not out of the realm of possibility. He's probably easily going to hit 150 points. He could get as high as 170 at this point. What can't he do with a puck? I mean, outside of play defense.
That's true.
So I think he's absolutely ridiculous. That is something I wanted to bring up. It's just that's just dumb. But yeah, no, Boston is still number one on the power rankings. I know that upsets you quite a bit, but
It does.
I mean, honestly, there's no way currently, unless they go on a massive losing streak, there's no way they're going to lose that spot anytime soon. I wish they would. I really wish they would, but not going to happen.
So, sorry, I'm gonna sidetrack us a little bit back to NFL real quick.
Go ahead.
So I just got a thing from NFL.com.
Go ahead. What do we got?
It's an article that was written about no extension imminent for QB Kirk Cousins. So I just wanted to read through some of this because I thought it was interesting. It says, though quarterback Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings have engaged in extension talks, no agreement is on the horizon. Nothing is imminent in terms of extension for Cousins, who's heading into his final season of his current deal. Cousins is due $15 million of a $20 million roster bonus on March 23rd. The remaining $5 million is due in September. The roster bonus provides a soft deadline, but there is little momentum toward a new deal, Garofalo added. Now, this is the part that's interesting, because I think you need to listen very carefully. Minnesota has already parted ways with longtime Vikings Adam Thielen, Eric Kendricks, and Harrison Smith, as the club looks to get out of being over $7.4 million on the salary cap. I found this very interesting, because I went digging to see if I could find any information of Harrison Smith being cut, and I have seen nothing, which makes me think there is one of two possibilities. Either A, the guy who wrote this article made an error, or B, he knows something that hasn't been officially announced yet. And being that I have heard rumors that Harrison Smith was potentially on the chopping block, I have a feeling that in the next couple of hours, or even possible the next couple of days, we will see Harrison Smith being cut by the Vikings.
My understanding, because the only thing I see is rumors about that, they have approached him to potentially take a pay cut.
I'm only going based up on that 38-minute-old article, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. If he doesn't take it, the rumor mill says he's going to be released.
And it sounds like, according to what that article says, if that guy who wrote that article, which was on NFL.com's website, if he has insider knowledge and already knows Smith has been released, then it's probably coming in the next couple hours.
I would guess so, yes. And then it wouldn't be surprised. I think that what that's hinting at is that the Vikings are not in a position that they want to extend a lot of the veteran contracts, and they may just dump Kirk.
I think they will. They might.
They might keep him on the roster for this year.
They must
just let him walk at the end of the season.
They might just let him walk. I'm curious because they talk about this competitive rebuild, so I'm very curious to see.
Yeah.
Then are they going full in on a roster? Are they full in going on draft rebuild? Are they going? Do they have a bunch of trades set up already? Because there's already rumors of Dalvin already getting traded. So they must. Are they getting something really good from that trade? Do they have other trades already lined up? I'm kind of curious now. Because they're letting a lot of veterans on defense go, which is like was our weakest of the year. So letting them walk, I can understand because you're like, well, they were the weakest category.
That's what I'm getting at, is that they were. So why would you want to keep a bunch of guys who were statistically not great, and you're paying a lot of money to?
Yeah. That's what I think they're doing, but at the same time, we have to get something in there that's better than nothing as well. So I don't know. I'm kind of curious.
There's probably something cut out for Za'Darius. I would guess that that's the reason they haven't dropped him. I would imagine there's we'll either hear about Harrison being released or traded soon, and Cook's going to get traded. And
probably.
I mean, I don't know if we're going to keep Cousins or if we're going to drop him and see if we can't get somebody like Jimmy G for a season or two.
God, please don't.
But I mean, at a cheaper price.
I'd rather get slapped in the face. I hate Jimmy G. I think Jimmy G.
I kind of agree.
I don't like Jimmy G. I would rather go for a Baker Mayfield over a Jimmy G.
But you get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I guess it depends on what their strategy is for the draft too. Maybe maybe they already have a deal in place to move up with somebody if the right circumstances are in place. Maybe, I don't know.
And they could totally do that too. Like, we
Yeah.
don't know what's going on in the back rooms right now.
Yeah.
But
If that does happen, we're talking about moving a lot of players, a lot more than what the Vikings usually do.
well,
which
and
makes
that's
me think
the
that
thing.
they have
it's
something in
it's
place.
The new.
It's a new regime. Yeah.
new regime.
But that makes me wonder if that means that they must have a plan in place to replace all these guys. And that's where I'm curious.
That would be my guess.
Now, if they don't, then this is a really fucked up situation. But
we'll find out.
I'm going to
I think that's
assume
going to be
that they
a very interesting thing to watch
Yeah.
over the next coming days. So I think next week we're going to have quite
Free agency is
the
gonna be
entertaining
interesting.
conversation in the next podcast about this.
Yeah.
And we're either going to be really happy with what's happening, or we're going to be trashing the crap out of this.
Well, I mean, free agency next week is going to be crazy because I mean, let's be honest. You know that the Rodgers thing is going to come to a head early free agency. You know it's going to.
And the Lamar thing.
The Lamar thing is going to be crazy in free agency probably.
And
Odell, Baker. I mean, I'm surprised, but there's already two teams that have been like, well, maybe. So it's like, oh, okay.
I mean,
if you can't get anything else, yeah.
Yeah.
So
we'll see, man.
I
think it's
know.
gonna be. I think we're
curious.
gonna see some crazy crap flying around.
And then there's the whole thing with Hopkins too, possibly being on the trade block. That's interesting. That's big.
That's interesting.
Right. So I think there's. I think free agency is going to be nuts this year. I think we're going to see, especially if Stafford's potentially. Like, can you imagine a world where if the Minnesota Vikings are dropping all these players, they go for Stafford, drop Cousins, go for Stafford?
But I mean, he's cheaper than Kirk, which is why I didn't do a Kirk for Stafford swap.
And you might be able to get him for cheaper than even the Rams paid for him because he's coming off of a season-long injury.
Where
you don't know what you're getting.
You might be able to get him for like a third or something.
Yeah.
Considering
that would be really interesting.
Considering that Jalen Ramsey just went for a third.
Exactly. Obviously, you can fleece the Rams, so why not?
I mean,
give him Kirk Cousins
technically a free agent, but you could do a sign and trade with Irv Smith and a third.
Oh yeah.
I don't think they need another tight end now, but
no, but we don't need him either.
Yeah, no. But anyway, no, you're not wrong.
I don't know.
I think this is gonna be weird. I think it's gonna be interesting.
I think free agency is gonna be really weird this year.
We're gonna have to find out what happens.
It's either gonna be really entertaining or really boring. Those are like the two options here.
Yeah, I don't think
we're gonna get a weird middle ground. I think it's gonna be either like crazy shit's going on all the time, or nothing's really gonna happen.
I expect my phone to go bing, 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 bing all day.
I think the start of free agency is gonna be crazy, and I think the end of free agency is gonna be really nuts.
I agree with you. I think there's gonna be a lull in the middle, but I think both the beginning and the end, right before the draft, are gonna be fucking bonkers. Yeah. I think we're going to see a lot of signings right away, but I don't think the trades will come through. Like, the Rodgers thing will pretty quickly.
I think the Rodgers thing will get done pretty quick, to be honest.
Yeah. But I think that some of the other ones may wait a little bit, and then right before the draft, you'll see a flurry of boop, 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 boop. Yeah. Yep. I think that's what's going to happen.
Probably.
All right, so that kind of ends this week's episode, because I don't have anything else.
Nope, I got nothing else.
So that's going to end this week's episode. If you do like what we do here, go ahead and give us a like, give us a subscribe, please. Say hi to everybody. We only have 14 of you motherfuckers, and we'd love to get a couple of more of you. In the meantime, we are going to say stay bearded out there. Stay awesome. I think I'm bearded, Brother Matt.
I think sometimes I'm Chris.
And we are out until next week.